Welcome everyone. Yesterday, December 12th at around 10:30 in the morning, a group of Azerbaijanis in civilian clothing began blocking the Goris-Stepanakert highway, the only road connecting Armenia and Karabakh. The Azerbaijanis are presenting themselves as environmental activists, and the blockade has in effect cut off Karabakh's Armenians from the outside world. As of this recording, the closure has already gone on for more than 24 hours, marking the longest stretch the road has been closed since the end of the 2020 war, when Russian peacekeepers took over the area. The authorities in Stepanakert have dismissed the Azerbaijanis' environmental claims as fabricated and denounced the road's closure as an attempt to depopulate Karabakh and commit ethnic cleansing. Joining us to discuss these major developments is Tigran Grigoryan, a political analyst and CivilNet columnist originally from Karabakh. Tigran, thank you very much for joining us today.
Hi, Mark. Thank you for having me.
To start, why now? This is already the second time this month that a group of Azerbaijanis has closed the highway, although I should say the first time was only for a few hours. What do you think changed in Baku's calculus to begin this escalation now?
Well, Baku has been preparing these provocations for weeks now. We have been following all the developments in Azerbaijan, all the statements coming from their foreign ministry, the Ministry of Defense, saying that, the Armenian side uses the Lachin corridor to transport weaponry and things like that. So they have been preparing the informational background for that. Why now? I think because it is the most convenient period of time to do that, because Russia is very busy with Ukraine. Russian capabilities have significantly decreased in our region, and Azerbaijan is also trying to understand Russia's red lines in Nagorno-Karabakh as well, and to extend actually its capabilities in Nagorno-Karabakh. And of course, Azerbaijan doesn't expect much international backlash. That's one of the other reasons. The international community hasn't been very vocal in recent months when Azerbaijan has been violating norms of international law, attacking Armenia proper. So probably the rationale in Baku is that in Nagorno-Karabakh probably there will be even less international reaction. And at this point, these expectations are valid because we don't see any kind of international reaction about the situation we have on the Lachin corridor or around the Lachin corridor, because this situation is near Shushi, which is technically is not part of the Lachin corridor.
So you mentioned the Russian peacekeepers. I'd love to talk about that more. How do you think this impacts the Russian peacekeeping mission in Karabakh? What might this change about how they operate, and what might this change also about how Karabakh residents view the peacekeepers?
Well, this has already been a huge blow to the credibility of the Russian peacekeeping mission in Nagorno-Karabakh. Lots of people have started questioning the effectiveness of the mission. People in Nagorno-Karabakh are calling for international peacekeeping presence, although I don't think that it is feasible at this moment, because no major international actually is ready or willing to take responsibility. But yes, nobody trusts the Russian peacekeeping mission. Well, nobody is probably an overstatement, but lots of people at this point do not trust the Russian peacekeeping mission. Lots of people, especially activists, do not understand why, for example, the commander of the peacekeeping missions is involved in activities which is not his area of responsibility, like negotiating with the Azerbaijani side on the access towards the mines and so on. So there are lots of questions, but there are also objective reasons behind this situation. The Russian peacekeeping force is a very limited one, so just technically it's impossible to control everything. They do not have a clear mandate, so they do not know how to act in certain situations. And this situation as well, we see that I think one of the intentions of the Azerbaijani regime is actually to provoke the Russian peacekeepers and create a bigger escalation. That's why there's a big media presence on the ground. The Azerbaijani public TV is actually live streaming all these events, even in the night. So yeah, that's the situation.
And one of the other notable developments that we see here is that the group of Azerbaijanis is presenting themselves as environmental activists. And this all comes amid a notable spike in rhetoric from Baku about the issue of mining in Karabakh. Why do you think that this is happening? Why do you think that the Azerbaijanis are choosing this path rather than just using brute military force to close down the corridor?
Well, first of all, they need a pretext to organize these actions, and environmental issues are always very significant ones. Even in the history of these conflicts, we know that the Karabakh conflict, even in Armenia, started with the environmental movement. In Azerbaijan, there were also some sort of speculations in the beginning of the Karabakh movement. So this is a very familiar narrative to link the environmental issues with the Karabakh conflict. Of course, it's ridiculous that now they are talking about mines now, because these mines have been operating for the last 2 years, and there have been absolutely no objections about that. So it's absolutely clear that this is just a pretext to create another provocation. Regarding your second question, why they are not using military tactics, I think because they are being a bit cautious. It's still dangerous to militarily attack or to militarily close the Lachin corridor. It won't be viewed very well internationally. So when you try to present a situation like this is some sort of grassroots civil society action organized by independent actors, there is more chance that the international community could see it not as a negative action. So they are just trying to portray this as some sort of grassroots civil society initiative, and thinking that there is more chance that the international reaction will be or would be less harsh. That's the main reason why they are not trying to use military force or start a new military escalation. But I think that scenario is not excluded as well.
Tigran, this also comes on the background of Baku's long-standing demand for the Zangezur corridor, a overland route between mainland Azerbaijan and Nakhichevan through Syunik. I was wondering, what do you see in terms of a connection here? Do you think that there is a sense that maybe by doing this they can extract demands regarding the Zangezur corridor?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Aliyev himself has been very vocal about that issue. Several weeks ago, he gave a speech saying, we provided unimpeded access to Nagorno-Karabakh from Armenia for 2 years. But this will not last long. We need the corridor in Zangezur, in Mehri. So this is definitely one of the leverages the Aliyev regime tries to use to force Armenia into accepting its maximalist agenda on the opening of communications. Because as we know, Armenia is not against the opening of the regional communications, but Aliyev wants a road, not even a road, a corridor, a proper corridor where the actual Armenian presence and the actual Armenian control over this road will be very limited. That's a red line for the Armenian government, and in no circumstances they are going to accept that.
Tigran, to wrap up, I'm wondering, where do you see this going? Is there a route for de-escalation? What do you think comes next?
Well, there is a huge danger of a humanitarian catastrophe. Everybody should understand that in Nagorno-Karabakh. Nagorno-Karabakh is completely dependent on Armenia in every area. If we're talking about food supplies, about medicines, and so on. So if this issue is not resolved in a matter of days, then we will have a serious humanitarian catastrophe. And the international community should be more vocal about that. I'm absolutely surprised that there is any reaction to this situation. We had this statement from the EU, but this was a very ambiguous statement saying we don't have eyes on the ground. But you don't need to have eyes on the ground to understand the situation. That the territory where more than 100,000 people live is absolutely cut off from the outside world. All the supplies are cut off. People who have medical emergencies cannot travel to Armenia. You should understand that Nagorno-Karabakh's healthcare system is not as developed as we would like. So lots of people are dependent on the Armenia's healthcare system. So this is a humanitarian catastrophe, a potential humanitarian catastrophe, and all the major powers, all the major international actors should act as soon as possible, at least issue statements demanding the opening of the corridor.
Absolutely. Well, Tigran, thank you again very much for joining us today. And thank you for joining us on CivilNet.